What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode. Today we're going to be talking about what to do with low libido on keto. Alright, so this is a question that I have gotten many times before. It's something that I've worked with many clients on, and it's something that I've dealt with myself. I have some YouTube videos a couple years back talking about my hypogonadism and how I remedy that naturally through the ketogenic diet. I think it's important to have this conversation because I think that people get in this idea that just sticking to a diet per se and not looking at the quality of the foods in that diet matters. And that's not true. It does matter. What you're putting in your body in terms of fats, proteins, and carbohydrates matters. Even on a ketogenic diet, proteins, fats, and carbs matter, all of them. And so making sure that you're getting in high quality foods and the proper foods to deal with the issues you're dealing with is super important. Couple things. One, disclaimer, I am not a doctor or medically licensed or medically licensed nutritional specialist, okay? Secondly, you should get blood work. I'm gonna start off with this. You need to get blood work. If your doctor's not letting you, you can go to any type of labs. Now, there's a bunch of phlebotomist places where you can order your own labs. I know it might be a penny or two to get it, but it's worth it. You need to know where you're at. So many people refuse blood panels because they don't want to spend the money, and they do themselves a disservice long term because they're not willing to invest in themselves in the moment, and they have no idea what's going on with them. Get the blood work. Know what's going on. Know what you need to be looking for and what you don't need to be looking for. I would tell you to get 4 tests, okay? The first one is going to be progesterone. Okay? Estradiol. Testosterone. Free and total. That's important. Free and total. And then SHBG, okay? So this matters for everybody. Oh, real quick. This matters for everybody, okay? Progesterone, foundational. It converts to either cortisol, testosterone, estrogen. It's super important to make sure that that's balanced, especially in women. If you're perimenopause or menopause and you're experiencing low libido, you're having struggle with your weight losses and stuff, you need to get especially these 2 checked, okay? Progesterone and estradiol, estrogen. Testosterone, free and total. Important. Total is the amount of testosterone in your blood. Free is the amount that can enter cells. If you have high total, you have low free, you're doing yourself a disservice. And what stops total from being free is this, SHBG, which is your sex hormone binding globulin. Okay, so sex hormone binding globulin binds to the testosterone, okay, and then it keeps it from entering the cell. So this being high messes with these 2 numbers. You want to make sure that you get all these checked, okay? All right, now that we have that list done, now let's kind of talk about what to do nutritionally if things are not where they should be. Okay, so first let's talk about testosterone because that's normally the libido crusher. You do have instances, obviously, like perimenopause and menopause where just estrogen dominance or low estrogen and low progesterone can be an issue. But when it comes to most cases, specifically in men, estrogen dominance and low testosterone tend to be the issue. So here's what we do. First thing, increase your saturated fat. I know people eat a lot of fat on keto, but it tends to be like avocados and olives, and most people that do dirty keto don't even care about that. They're getting in a bunch of soybean oil and vegetable oil. It's killing your gains, bro. It's killing your gains, bro. Increase your saturated fat. Be intentional about adding animal fats and animal cuts of meat to your diet, heavily so. My meat consumption went up about 50% when I started to increase my testosterone numbers. Saturated fat is a game changer here. You've got to get it in. So this is for anybody that has low testosterone. You need to be getting in high amounts of saturated fats, okay? First and foremost, huge game changer. Look at the quality of your fats. Change it, okay? I'm not saying you shouldn't eat avocado oil or olive oil. Obviously, those MUFAs can be really good for inflammation, which is going to help you in the long run when it comes to hormone creation anyways. But you want to make sure that you're getting in enough saturated fat. I would say at least 60 to 80% of your fat should be saturated or coming from a saturated source. And I say that because even though 80% of your fat might be animal fat is not 100% saturated fat. Okay, it's got some omega-3s, it's got some omega-6s. So when I say 80%, I'm not saying 80% saturated fat, I'm saying 80% animal fat, basically. Like 80% should be coming from a saturated fat source. Cacao butter is another great source, like a keto brick is not a bad idea in this either. All right, so dietary wise, that's about it. You can cut back on your veggie intake a little bit because we see with the fibers and some of the oxalates and things like that, there can be a limitation on the nutrient absorption. So like if you eat spinach with a steak, we see zinc absorption get cut down. Well, what does that mean for other things? What does that mean for the fatty acids? I don't have any studies yet. I don't think they've dived much into the limitations of fiber and vegetation on fat absorption in the intestinal walls, but we never want to be too careful. So if we're trying to really do this, let's go all in and let's just remove some of that vegetation to just really up and make sure that we're optimizing absorption of those fatty acids, those saturated fatty acids. All right. As far as food goes, that's really it. It's really simple changes. As it pertains to supplementation, this is where things get interesting. There's a couple things that you want to be taking. One, ashwagandha. Ashwagandha, KSM 99, game changer. 400 to 600 milligrams a day, depending on your size. I went with 600 personally. I'm giving you personal evidence here. Stinging nettle root, another good one. Stinging nettle root, 400 milligrams. I'm going to have this listed in the description below, by the way. Rosea Extract, game changer, 250 milligrams a day. Game changer. You might want to get one of those little like scales that people use to like do things they shouldn't do, but get them for your mushroom powders. Cordyceps, 1,000 milligrams. Okay, reishi mushroom, 1,000 milligrams, and then boron. Okay, boron's a big one here. 15 milligrams or milliliters. That list, game changer. Game changer. My testosterone went from 120 to 790. Okay, it went from 19 free to 120 free. Like, those are game changers. They're absolute game changers, okay? So that's testosterone. Females can do that too. Dosages might vary a little bit there, and definitely keep an eye on it. I would test every 60 to 90 days to make sure that you're not overdoing it. Definitely want testosterone dominance. You don't want to develop PCOS, and all that. All right, so now what do we do about progesterone and estrogen? So estrogen, nutritionally, you can increase or at least swap. So like, if you're trying to increase testosterone and take away estrogen, and take away some of your vegetation, but then the vegetation you are going to be eating, swap it for things like broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower. Cruciferous vegetables have a lot of DIM, right? DIM is dimethylene. It helps metabolize estrogen in the system. You can also take DIM because you have to eat especially if you have like a high amount of estrogen, the amount of veggies you'd have to eat is crazy. And of course, so then you wonder, well, what about estrogen dominance in primitive times? Well, in primitive times, they didn't have all the phytoestrogens and chemicals and plastics that we get. So our estrogen can be high from synthetic purposes, so we need to come up with synthetic ways to help us metabolize it. So DIM, detoxes, things like that can be an outstanding way to approach that, 100%. If you have any questions on like where to get a good DIM detox, DM me, I got you. But that's one way to handle the estrogen. Progesterone, honestly, there are ways to increase it via food through certain vegetation. I have not seen that work well. Most people that have low progesterone and the adaptogens that we talked about, because ashwagandha helps with everything in general, and we can get in that in just a second about why. But most people that don't see the adaptogens help and just like those nutritional shifts that we talked about, they need to go on progesterone oil. And I know that's weird, but they have a lot of really good products that are bioidentical, and you might just want to get with a specialist, get with a nutritional practitioner, get with your doctor that maybe, and get on something that's actually going to help you. And I think that's okay. So that's my advice with all of that. Now, I think some people might be wondering, how do the adaptogens work? Okay, so the adaptogens help with neurological pathways. It's not like you take these powders in this list in the description and all of a sudden your sex organs just start creating a bunch of your hormones properly. what happens is these things help open up neurological pathways to help your body better communicate to get better production. So for example, your hypothalamus tells your pituitary to produce luteinizing hormone. Luteinizing hormone goes to your sex organs, your gonads, so for men that'd be the testicles, women that'd be the ovaries and their adrenals, and tells them to produce testosterone, okay? If that pathway at all, right, there's 4 stops: hypothalamus, pituitary, luteinizing hormone traveling, all this. If all of that is not communicating well, you're not going to produce well. So these adaptogens help open up these pathways and lower inflammation so that your body can properly communicate, okay? So that's why they're so effective. For some people, that might not be the issue. And it's okay to figure out what that issue is. Then you might have deeper rooted issues. Everything I'm saying right now might not help certain individuals. Test them out though, because natural is always best. And if you can't do natural, be okay with going, again, with a bioidentical. Get with somebody that knows what they're doing, and take that step, because until you do, you don't really realize how damaging being in a situation where like your libido is low can be. Talking strictly even from like a weight loss perspective, a motivational perspective, low libido gets in the way of everything, right? Low sex drive gets in the way of everything, right? It crushes men's ambition, their confidence, all that stuff. Like making sure that's fixed is super important, especially even in women as well. Like how they feel about themselves, their confidence, all that stuff that can drive a long-term healthy lifestyle is huge. And also, if you're in a position where you have low libido and it is hormone related, that's going to bleed into other things. So get it addressed. Try the things that we talked about today. Get with somebody if you want to take it a step further and really dial it in for you. I hope this video helps. I'll see you in the next one.